So as a teenager, I would give up chocolate for Lent. Now, this was a practice that lasted all of about 3 days. I didn't make it very far giving up chocolate during Lent. And I actually didn't grow up in a tradition that really paid much attention to Lent or practiced Lent, but I had quite a few friends who were part of the Catholic Church, and they would always choose to give up something for Lent. So we would get together and talk about what we wanted to give up, and one year we landed on chocolate. Now, our desire to give up chocolate was not very spiritual. In fact, it just became more of like a willpower struggle. Like, we can do this. We can not eat chocolate for 40 days. We know that we have the strength to do this. And then we'd last about 3 days doing that. So during the season of Lent, Christians often give something up in order to become more dependent on God or to focus more on God. So the hope is that less whatever fill in the blank activity, less chocolate, less social media, less caffeine equals more of God. Thus the title of our Lent series for 2025, Less is More, abstaining from the things that hurt us or hurt others. Now, as a teenager, less chocolate did not equal more of God for me. My approach to this practice was misguided. That's because when we say no to something, it's not just to deprive ourselves. We also get to say yes to more of God. So is there something this Lent season that would be good for you to say no to? Think about something in your life that distracts you from God, or maybe even is harmful to you in some way. Perhaps it's time to say no to that habit so that you can say yes to more of God. So when my kids were little, we would read this children's book, No, David. It was about a little boy who was constantly getting into things that he wasn't supposed to. He'd be getting into situations that were a little bit dangerous for him. So his mom was always having to tell him, no, David. That's most of what the book is about. So in our early years of parenting, I would say that real life mirrored fiction in this sense. I found myself having to say no to my kids a lot, mostly because I wanted to keep them safe. I didn't want them to be in situations where they could hurt themselves. So of our 3 kids, Jack was our most curious and adventurous one, who was always getting into things he wasn't supposed to, climbing on things he wasn't supposed to, getting into situations that he wasn't supposed to. And I do have his permission to throw him under the bus. He knows that he's going to be in this video. So there was a lot of no, Jack, in our house. Or don't do that, Jack. Get off of that, Jack. Stop that, Jack. But I needed to say no to him in order to keep him out of dangerous situations. Now, I obviously wasn't so concerned about his safety that I didn't quickly run and grab my camera to take pictures of him in all these situations. But I did have to say no to him a lot. So this Lent, is there something that you need to say no to yourself about? Maybe you find yourself in a situation that isn't the best for you, or maybe something is pulling you away from God and you need to say no to that thing. The Less is More study is going to offer you a sampler, in a sense, of different spiritual practices that will help you say no to certain habits to be able to say yes to more of God. So for our practice this week, you have 2 options, fasting or abstinence. Both of them have to do with giving up something. Fasting has to do with food. So if you choose to fast, you might skip a meal in order to grow more of a spiritual hunger for God. So as you experience physical hunger, you translate that into a spiritual hunger to spend more time in prayer, to spend more time in dependence on God and gratitude to God. Or you can choose to abstain from a certain activity or habit, such as social media or gossip or caffeine or more TV. So you can choose to abstain from that in order to focus more of your attention in prayer. But remember that fasting and abstinence aren't just about saying no, also about saying yes to something better. So in the coming weeks, we'll talk about replacing those negative habits with something life-giving. It's not just about having the willpower to say no to chocolate or whatever the thing is that you're giving up. It's about saying yes to more of God. So in the book, No, David, most of the book, as I said, consists of lots of no's, until the book's very end, when David's mom reminds him, yes, David, I love you. And all of our spiritual practices bring us back to God's love for us, a resounding, yes, I love you. God longs to show us his grace and mercy. He longs to be in relationship with us. So what do you need to say no to in order to experience more of God's love?